Hey guys, I hope you're all doing very well. Welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be talking about Bob Marley One Love. Now when it comes to movies giving a real life depiction of an artist or a musician or a band, I always look at it with good expectations. I'm a fan of music and, listening to or watching these movies that really tells the true story of these aspects is something that I'm, keen in watching. So when it came to this movie, I didn't really know so much about Bob Marley's life and his career. I did listen to some of his music, but I wouldn't say I'm really religiously hooked on it. I think it's good music, but I'm not so much of the biggest fans of him, if that makes sense. So going into this, did this film really deliver and really show the perspective of Bob Marley? In my thoughts, not really. I'd say it did well in some of the aspects that it can do to talk about Bob Marley's story and how his music united people. But I think it wasn't executed to the best it could have been. There are a few problems I have with this movie. In fact, I think there is a proportion that there are more problems than I could praise it for. I don't think this is a bad film by any stretch of the imagination, as some people meant it out to be. I think some of the reviews have, put this movie in a little bit of a negative light. But I think there are things that you can take from it, which is good and, in a sense, inspirational to watch versus, criticizing a lot of the aspects of this film. I look at it kind of in a way that there is a middle ground to it. So yeah, that's how I pretty much feel watching this movie. Now, I want to talk about some of the aspects of this film. So, I think the narrative I think it had an idea for the story. So, one of the things that the movie does start with is literally how Bob Marley's hometown or country in Jamaica had declared independence from Great Britain, and now it became divided, essentially. There's civil war and civil unrest. And a lot of that is really centered on just the tensions around Jamaica and just the horrible conditions that living there, that Bob Marley experienced, as well as his wife and the friends and family around him. Just terrible. And he's obviously going through some of the periods that he went through tough upbringings as well, being very young, that his British father left him, and he was left on his own with his mother. So there's always a lot of these things that played in his life. And I think they try to put the aspect there. But the issue is that with him being a well-known musician, they don't really connect his music well to the actual construct of, Jamaica and why it was divided, how his music united Jamaica. So a lot of scenes mostly play out his time, producing his music, mostly the Exodus album in London, and a lot of that comes through. I mean, a lot of those sort of attentions to details they get from it is actually good, and they try and get the feel of his music there when they're recording and producing the tracks, which were good and well choreographed. But then it doesn't make sense how that was related to getting, himself united back in Jamaica, where the whole civil unrest and tensions somehow evaporated. So I think there was just some executions in terms of his narrative that felt very misplaced and disjointed. It's not horrible or bad by any means, but I think there is an aspect of that where you can look at it with a fine tooth and kind of look at those sort of things that you can pick with this film. Now, other things I want to talk about the film is the acting. I thought the acting was fine. I don't really think there was anything much that was really bad to criticize. Many people kind of pointed out about Kingsley Ben-Adir's acting as Bob Marley, but I didn't really see much issue with it. In fact, really all the actors didn't really... there was really no flaws in terms of what they were delivering, unless if they really looked at whether they replicate their Jamaican accent well, which I don't really know or can't speak Jamaican accent myself, but I think some people were kind of looking at the way they were utilizing the accent and how that was delivered. So those are things that people have been picking on, but I didn't really look at it into it as a problem. Now, I think there are moments in this film that they could have really gone further with Bob Marley's music a bit more, especially like his tours, like his Exodus tour. I think they didn't really put great emphasis into it, and they didn't really add so much of the choreograph of the tours, the music very well. It was kind of more centered on just his character and his storyline more, which I think they could have really added more to it to really increase the charisma of the film and really enlighten the film a bit more with the audience who loved his music. So I think I think it did miss the mark when it came to that. Another thing I do want to kind of look at is a bit of the sequencing and the writing. There are like flashbacks when Bob Marley was younger. I don't really think they really add them in the right place. I think it could have been sequenced better from, going from his younger years when he first started to how he developed getting older, getting into music, and how that all tied in. That's kind of like the perspective I would have looked at it, a little bit more structured in that sense. But they don't. I think with some of the going back in time when he was younger, they should have really made more sense to know about the time period and when this really occurred to make sense, because a lot of it felt very misplaced. Overall, if I had to rate Bob Marley One Love, I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10. Like I said, I think the movie does well in the aspects of the acting perspective and trying to get the visual representation of Bob Marley and the divide in Jamaica, and also trying to see how his music really connected. I think they had the ideas for the story and the structure very well, and a lot of that was contributed very well with some of the acting performances. So I do give like the prompts for that. I wish there was better structure to the narrative to really focus more on how Bob Marley's music really developed and how his personal life also came about as well. So those things were kind of missed a little bit from this film, and I really think they lacked the moments when it came to his music and his tours to really elevate the presence of this film. So the only thing I would really describe this movie overall, it's underwhelming. So that's unfortunately the way I look at it. But the only positive I could really take from this is that I watched this movie literally after enduring my pain watching Madam Web. And this movie did have more of a soft spot for me to actually at least lift my emotions a bit more. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this movie. Please like, comment, subscribe, dislike if you want to dislike. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, that's about it. See you later.